All right, so this is kind of a special extra video because it's that point in the semester when we need to make our images print ready and we need to put them into the class Dropbox, which we log into at www.dropbox.com, and we use the login information that's in the Canvas page under links. Once you open the class Dropbox, which is shared by all of my students in this lab, so digital and photography students, you find the photography class files folder, you click on that, and then we are going to put our print ready files into this folder, the flattened TIFF files to print. Each of you has a folder I've created for you in here, and then you're going to navigate to your folder. But before you do that, you can download the instructions on how to make something print ready. So I have those here. And this is just a guideline to help you understand why you have to flatten and change the size before you print. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my file. I already have a print ready project there. This is an older Cubism project from last semester. If I double click on it, it will just preview it, but that does not mean that I can print that. What I will do is simply, these folders are hardwired and kept on our print machines. And so I don't need to go to Dropbox.com once I'm on a print computer. Instead, I simply open up my file and it will be there. But seeing it on my computer here shows me that it's ready. So how do I get something print ready? First thing I need to do is find my best, highest resolution, finished version of my photo. And usually that means it's going to be in multiple layers still. Whether it's a PSD, if it's an earlier assignment, like your texture assignment, your contrast assignment, or as a TIFF, if it's one of our more recent complex projects, like the Cubist project. So if you have your folders organized within documents, here are my documents. Here's my photo folder for this semester. Here are my assignments. I am going to open my Photo Cubist project. And like me, you probably have a lot of different files that were generated. You know, lots of different exposures, lots of things. So it has everything to do with how you organize your files to be able to find it. So anything I've saved that I've worked on, I save with my name. And I'll see all of those. And then I'll often mark with orange the JPEGs that are meant for online viewing that I upload to PhotoBucket. So I see that those aren't what I want. JPEGs are not full resolution files. They are compressed files. So they are not the best to print from. They will not be as high quality. I have my PSD and then I have my TIFF. So let's review what those are. If I open up my PSD, though that is the finished version for a lot of our assignments, for these multiple composite assignments, the PSD is the version that has all of these individual photos as separate layers. But it is not the finished product because we then made a TIFF that I will open in Photoshop. And a TIFF, if you just double click it, it will open in Preview instead of Photoshop. So you have to right click to open in Photoshop. And so what our TIFF version is, and this is true of our panoramic and of our Cubist project, and maybe even of our effective object project, is it has no background. The background's completely blank, but all the photos are composited together into a single layer. And then on top of that, we ran different actions at different percentages and erased the background from all of them to get our final image. Now to make this print ready, this is my highest resolution because TIFF does not lose any resolution. It's what's called a lossless compression format, an archive compression format. So in order to make this print ready, I need to flatten it. And this meets both of the criteria for what the choice for making it print ready. It's our best, highest resolution, finished project. So the PSD is also high resolution, but it's not finished as much as this TIFF is. How do you check your resolution? You go up to image size, under image, and you'll see here it's measured in inches, width and height, and make sure it's inches, not something like pixels. And then you'll also see the resolution, the pixels per inch. So mine is about 11 by 15 inches by 350 pixels per inch, which is a good resolution. That's plenty high. But before I mess with its dimensions, I do the first step of making it print ready, and I flatten the image. That's because we don't want to print images that have multiple layers. There's no reason for it. Multiple images or multiple layers make it so it takes longer to print. It takes more memory. And if it takes too much memory to print, it will buffer in the middle of the print job, and that will cause the inks to dry at a different rate, and you'll see a slight difference between lines of printing. So this is full resolution. If I want to get a sense of how it will actually look when printed, I can view it at 100%. And what that will do is it will match the pixels of the screen with the pixels it will print. So I'm viewing now the actual pixels that will print. And it looks pretty sharp. It looks good. If it doesn't look good at 100%, it's not going to look good when you print it. All right, now it's flattened. What's the next step? I need to resize the image to change the physical dimensions to fit within my mat. So now we need to understand something about mats. You were asked in your supply sheet to be ready to get some black mats for our critiques. Let's see, mat dimensions. So I'm just going to show you a little sketch that can be helpful. So a standard mat, which fits into standard frames that anyone can buy, you can find them online, you can find them at stores, come in only a few sizes. And one of the most standard sizes out there for artwork is 11 by 14 inches. So if that's a portrait format, that means that the outside dimensions of the mat fit an 11 by 14 frame. So it's 14 inches here and 11 inches here. What a mat is a border that protects your photo. It keeps the glass of a frame or from a photo bag actually touching your photo, and it also gives it some visual space so it doesn't blend in with whatever's around it. So it's a little pretty much acid-free or acid-blocked cardboard frame. So your photo's in here. How mats differ is what the window dimension is. And so the most standard photo window dimension is 8 inches by 10 inches. And that's why you hear about 8 by 10 photos a lot. So that's the most standard mat you'll have. It has a 11 by 14 outside dimension. Let me just shrink my brush here a little. And an 8 by 10 inch window. This is the window. This is the outside. All right. That's for our regular paper. So what we do for regular size prints, and a good example of this would be your contrast projects or your texture projects, we print them on 8.5 by 11 paper. So this is my contrast project, let's say. I have 3 squares with photos in them. This paper that I put into the printer is 11 inches by 8.5 inches. We print it, we make it look beautiful, but when we put it under the mat, there is going to be an overlap. And you need that overlap. So the mat will actually cut into our photo a little bit, like so. So when I say you need to resize it so that the image will fit comfortably within your mat opening, it means you need to format your image in Photoshop to look good within a standard opening. In this case that I've sketched, 8 by 10. But for some projects, and the Cubist project, which all of us are going to print, we want a larger mat and a larger opening. So, that introduces us to our large mat. And you'll each need at least one of these for your Cubist project, which is printed on large paper. Instead of an 11 by 14 outside dimension, the large mat has an outside dimension of 16 by 20 inches. Which is still a standard size, which means you can still buy portfolios, still buy archival boxes, still buy frames that have that dimension. So it's very convenient. The inside dimension in the most standard form is 11 by 14 inches, the outside dimension of our regular mat. So this can fit nicely into that. So this is the window. And this is the outside dimension. Now what happens if you print on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and you try to mat it in this mat? It's too small, exactly. It would be what's called floating it. And so it would float in the middle here, but because we don't have a backing board, we don't have a frame, we don't have spacers, we don't have the right kind of adhesive tape to help it have it float in a nice way, that's not what we want to do. So instead, we print on larger paper. So the paper we use for this is what's called AB size. And it's the largest our printer can go. Whereas this is letter size paper. And that's what you can buy for yourself for very affordable rates. AB size paper is quite a bit bigger. It is 13 inches by 19 inches. And not just any printer can print on it. So if your paper is 13 by 19 inches, you have a lot more space for your image. And if you have a resolution that fits for it, then this image can go into this mat. There is another option for opening as well. If you buy your mat at Michaels, they have a standard pre-cut mat that's not an 11 by 14 opening, but a 12 by 18 inch opening, which can look really nice. And you can also get that at an 18 by 24 inch outside dimension and a 16 by 20 inch outside dimension, as long as they have it. So this would be 12 inches and this would be 18 inches, which would be perfect for panoramics or any projects you just want to print as large as possible. But either way, you're going to print it on this paper. So you need your image to fit in Photoshop in a way that is comfortable. So, coming back to my assignment, now I go to image size, and I have to know what kind of mat I want this to fit into. And if I want it to fit into a 12 by 18 mat, then I'm good. But if I want it to fit within an 11 by 14, I have a problem because it's height